This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke, and Bella McKenzie, the first week of the Women's Rugby World Cup in England was exceptional, but the second week was better.
Yeah, it was. We saw some teams go through to the quarterfinals. We saw some teams with a 31-all draw. We'll probably get into that later, but another great week of rugby, a few upsets, and yeah, I think it was just good footy played all around.
Yeah, it certainly was, and there's lots to talk about. We'll quickly reflect on what happened in the first round, but we will throw forward our focus to this weekend's final round of pool matches. But a couple of things just to update everybody. World Rugby held a media conference last night in England, just to update people about the tournament so far. And a few of the stats: 410,000 tickets have been sold, 205 million social media video views. In the research that they've done with the crowds, 30% of fans have never been to a women's rugby game before. And importantly, 90% of fans will come back. In terms of the quality of the game, we've obviously moved from 12 teams to 16 teams, but compared to the 2022 Rugby World Cup, in terms of on-field play, passing is up, there are fewer knock-ons, there are more rucks, there are more tries, and the effectiveness of the kicking has gone up. So, Bella McKenzie, it's fair to say that the product on the field and the product off the field are both at new levels.
Yeah, it's really pleasing to hear those stats, and all everybody wants is improvement. And I think you can see now with some of those top sides, the real investment that their unions have put into their players, their teams, their resources, the coaching staff. It's just making the product a whole lot better, as you mentioned, and making for some really enjoyable footy to watch.
Yeah, Ewan McKenzie, the former World Cup winning Wallaby player and outstanding coach, he made the point, he took a very good look at the England team at the weekend and their victory over Samoa. And his commentary was around how impressed he was about the detail in their game. You know, the small things, whether it was at line out, whether it was scrum, whether it was the breakdown, whether it was their passing, just the general skill level. He was very impressed with the England side in particular, because clearly they are the best team at this particular tournament. That doesn't mean they're going to win it, but they are the best team at this stage. So it's good to see that experts are starting to appreciate the quality that we're seeing in the women's game. And his point was it's starting to look a lot like the men's game. And he made the point that in the AFL, for example, because there's so much reliance on kicking, the women's game doesn't quite yet look like the men's game. Whereas in rugby and in rugby league, they're starting to look they're starting to look very similar because of the skills that are being applied. So would you agree that we're starting to see a better shape and a more appealing game?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they'll ever probably be the same just due to that collision and that space of the game. But I think, yeah, as you mentioned, the skill level, the kicking is probably the biggest area that's improved with the women's game. And as for England, it's a true reflection of their program they have over there. They have the best women's rugby comp in the world. So they're playing consistent footy all year, all round, and it's really starting to pay dividends at these big tournaments. And they're a really hard side to beat. And I think, yeah, they'll probably go a long way in this tournament. And that's a reflection of the investments made into them early on.
Yeah, no question. One of the other points that Ewan made, which I thought was interesting, was in terms of the kicking. Obviously, the women can't kick the ball as long as the men can kick the ball. And what that does is compress the field and make the contest a bit narrower than it is in the men's game when you get those longer kicks and the men have got more space to be able to attack. And so he said that's what people should be looking at, is to understand that that's why it looks like the contests are closer, because that the field can't be opened up as much because the kicking game of the women is not as lengthy as the kicking game in the men's. But one of the other points that I loved that was made at the press conference last night was Alan Gilpin, the chief executive of World Rugby, saying that he hopes that the men can take lessons from the women about more personality, more engagement with the fans, more engagement with the media, and to be able to embrace everything about the game and not see it as an inhibitor to high performance, and that, you know, a smile on the face, a selfie, spending more time on the field as the women do after the game, the way they celebrate with each other after the game, it just brings and creates this wonderful atmosphere both inside and outside of the ground. And World Rugby are clearly looking for the men to take this up. And it's certainly something regular listeners to Rugby Unity will know that I've been going on about in the men's game ever since we started this program, that there is too big a lack of engagement with fans. There's just not enough opportunity. And I think, you know, here we are seeing it writ large, the opportunity to engage with fans, and the men have to change. If they want more money in the game, if we want more people in more countries caring more about the game, we have to lift the quality of the engagement with the men's game, which is clearly a lot larger than the women. And there is no reason why it can't happen. Eddie Jones, one of the leading coaches in the world, says from a high performance point of view, there is no setback for the men spending 20 minutes on the field after the game. Obviously, if people are injured, they've got to get looked after. That's fine. But there are ways around it. Ewan McKenzie said the other day, well, as long as it's planned, as long as it's organised, as long as the field staff know about it, as long as, you know, the players are well organised, there's no reason that the men can't spend more time on the field. So there you go. I just think it's a great lesson for the game. We are seeing the benefits of it now, and let's make sure that we see the men, you know, hopefully there's enough humility in the game that they can learn from the women's game. Bella McKenzie, you've been around the sport for some time. How would you observe the differences between the men and the women in terms of that engagement with the fans and with the media?
Yeah, I'd say the women probably stay behind a bit longer and sign a lot more autographs. They like to get around to all the fans. Definitely in the games I've played in. It hasn't always been planned. It's probably more just a thing you do, just walk around and thank the crowd, that kind of vibe. And you do see the likes of Alona Ma. I know we speak about her a lot, but she has brought so many new fans to the game of rugby, and she's really leading the way in that space. And I'm sure there are people like that in the men's game that do have those big personalities and really can showcase their personality that way through social media or just even staying behind and engaging with the fans in that way. But yeah, I think it's something that the men definitely need to start doing. And as you said, if they want to bring more people into the game and get more money, it's definitely a way to do it.
It's a cultural problem in the men's game, and it's been that way as long as I've been involved in the sport at a professional level. As yes, the team comes first. We don't want people to get too far ahead of the team. Players don't like to put themselves forward because their mates will have a crack at them about, oh, you know, you big head, what are you doing? And this, again, we've got to grow up. We simply have to grow up. We have to mature in the men's game, and we have to take this opportunity, because if you can imagine, if both teams stay on the field at the end of the game for 20 minutes, that's close to, 70 players, and then put the coaches on there as well for 20 minutes. The amount of engagement, the amount of emotions, the numbers of memories that will be created with people who go to test matches would be phenomenal. And then we add in social media and everything that goes with it. It's a golden opportunity that's sitting there. We need to make it a ritual, because as you said, at the moment, the women just do it because they do it. It needs to be organised. It needs to become a ritual so as that we can build that into our game. It's consistent with our values. It's consistent with creating those experiences and memories that build those connections that will bring more people into our wonderful sport. But anyway, there my lecture ends for this week. But don't worry, I'll be back at it again another time. I was told the other day that I was boring people about it, but I'm going to keep boring people about it because it is so important. Now, before we get to the football, the third voice, you are so important to rugby unity, and thank you so much for continuing to make comments on social media, on our YouTube channel. And just to pull out some comments from the audience, Tony Mazzani says, I hope this tournament helps to bring more eyes to the game. Well, Tony, I think that is already happened. Brian Moore says, holy cow, the girls are bloody amazing. The All Blacks need to take a long look at themselves. These ladies are making them look age grade. I'll keep my eye on them. Good on you, Brian. Noel J. Griffin says, women's game is a clear growth opportunity. Apparently, and now it's been confirmed, Noel, 30% of the people who are attending Women's Rugby World Cup games have never seen a women's rugby game before. Considering the turnout has been great, that shows there is a new audience there, no question. Previously, we've discussed about in the United States with basketball, WNBA and the NBA, there is a Venn diagram where there is an overlap, but there is a significant portion of supporters in the US who follow the women's game who don't follow the NBA and vice versa. So hopefully we're seeing the same thing emerge here in rugby as well. And finally, Dave Harris says, watch the women's rugby properly for the first time last night. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Bokker babes are bass. Now, I'm not quite sure what bass means in South African, but there you go. Well done, Dave, for enjoying the game because, yes, as I was saying the other day, from a rugby point of view, I don't think you can watch all of these women's rugby games and not think that they're entertaining, that they're not enjoyable. Yes, there have been some score blowouts, no question, but the football, the rugby has been first class. Now, Bella, before we move into this week and a look at some of the critical matches in the final round of the Women's Rugby World Cup, just quickly, we will pull out a couple of the matches from last week, and perhaps the first one we need to have a look at is the 31-all draw between USA and Australia. Certainly when the whistle blew, both teams stood on the field. It was damp, it was cold, but it was flat. No one knew where to look. It was one of those moments, wasn't it, that both teams felt that the opportunity to go through to the quarterfinal had been lost.
Yeah, you're right. I think both teams and a lot of post-match comments were that it felt like a loss and that they felt really flat. But yeah, speaking to a few of the Wallaroos girls, I know they'll bounce back this weekend and give it a red hot crack to try and make the quarters. But yeah, it was an interesting game, very back and forth. I think the momentum swung quite a few times, and then in the last 5 minutes of play, I think it was just insane, like a lot of discipline, penalties, and then a few errors there. But yeah, it was a great game of rugby to watch, and yeah, probably one that was a missed opportunity for both teams.
Would you have to be concerned if you were the coach of the Wallaroos at the number of penalties that were conceded?
I think there was some questionable refereeing around the breakdown, and I think everyone that watched the game has probably made that comment. But yeah, I just think maybe the discipline is something that Wallaroos really need to tidy up. They just really let the USA back into the game that way. I think we were definitely the better team for the most part of that game. But yeah, again, just ill discipline letting the US back into the game, and we could never really put it away. But yeah, I probably wouldn't be worried more so. It's just cleaning up those areas.
Yeah, but drifting in and drifting out of the game at different times, the focus clearly was on, the chop tackles to be able to, take the legs first, get over the top of them, secure possession. But at times, and also in attack, it seemed to me a couple of times that, they lost a bit of the shape. They lost a bit of their direction, and that sort of drifting in and drifting out of games is a bit of a concern as you're building into a big game with so much riding on it this weekend against England.
Yeah, perhaps the pressure of the game kind of got to the girls. I know they had an inexperienced spine on the field, but not to say they didn't try their best and put in their best effort. But yeah, I think credit to USA's defence. They put a lot of pressure on some of the phase play there, but yeah, look, I'm not too sure. I think moving forward, they probably just try and go first phase and try and get the ball out the back to our strike weapons on the edges and kind of do it that way.
Yeah, well, certainly, Desi Miller a double, Caitlin Holtz a double. once we've got the ball and we've got the ball wide, or the Australian team has the ball and gets the ball wide, they're a threat.
Yeah, of course.
They can score.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen that in the past. And I think they've kind of gone away from that and they've really focused on defence and kind of getting rid of possession. It kind of seems they're kicking everything on this side of halfway. So they are making a lot of tackles, double the US. So perhaps they got a bit tired towards the back end of that game and stopped playing footy, which they're so good at doing. So, yeah.
So we'll come to this weekend, the Australian team taking on the favourites, the home team down in Brighton. Everything to play for, and we'll analyse that in a moment. But my South African team got up over Italy, the first time that they'd beaten a team in the top 10. A joyous occasion, 29 points to 24. There's just so much to like about this South African team when you look at the way they are not only playing the game, but the way they're enjoying the whole occasion, watching them on social media. I don't think they've got these electric smiles. They're just all having such a great time. They've been the surprise packet so far, haven't they?
Yeah, I kind of expected them to do pretty well after watching them in World XV last year. They're a really powerful side, and they've got an experienced 10 in Libby, and then Nadine Roos moving to fullback, which is probably her preferred position. She really can open up a game that way. But yeah, their forward pack is so powerful. Azeza Hele, just a freak, the number 8. She's just such a good footy player, and she's someone you definitely want on your team, not having to tackle. But I think honestly, come 2029, if they can get the right investments and get their fitness and their conditioning up that way, like it seems they have great coaches. It seems it's probably just the conditioning that kind of lets them down. But they're going to be a huge team in years to come if they can really get some backing and some investing. Yeah,
but I know they do, and we'll talk about this in a minute. They're playing France this weekend, but a happy team is a dangerous team.
Yeah, you're right.
A team that is,
great culture,
performing above. Yeah, that's right. But performing above expectation. Rugby in South Africa at the moment is at a level that it's never been at before in terms of the country not only wrapping themselves around the men's Springboks, but wrapping themselves around the women's Springboks. So they've got the nation behind them. And I think that's going to play in their favour. And it will be. I think the point you raise around conditioning is a good one. And clearly there's not been the comparative investment in the game over the same period of times that we've seen in the top teams in this women's tournament. So that might make it a little bit hard, but I do think that they will be an absolute handful over the next coming weeks, and confidence grows. It's just one of those things. I picked it last week, and one of the commentators on our YouTube page said, I'm surprised that you picked them over Italy. And I said, well, I feel vindicated that I was right. What I saw was there. So anyway, this weekend, we say goodbye to Salford. We say goodbye to Sunderland and the beautiful north of England. And what a great time people have had up in the north, and we sort of move south, and Brighton clearly is a big venue this weekend, as are others. I think Exeter this weekend is another of the venues. It looks like there'll be 4 sellouts this weekend. That was some more news out of the World Rugby last night, which is great. The fact that preliminary matches at World Rugby, Women's World Rugby Tournament are now selling out as well. And I think as the momentum builds behind this, as the profile builds, as the energy and the vibe builds, which clearly it is, I do think that we're going to see, quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals where there will be the house full through those. So anyway, lots to look forward to this weekend. We'll go through the matches in the final round. First up, Canada versus Scotland. This will be a cracking game of rugby. Canada clearly second favourite for the tournament, but Scotland have impressed so far in the way that they've played the game. So your views, Bella McKenzie, on that particular contest?
Yeah, this will be a great challenge for Scotland to see where they are truly at. They haven't really versed a top team in the pool stages. So, great challenge for them to see where their rugby's at, and against Canada, who we all know is a strong side and thumped Wales last week, 42-0, and had a really great attacking performance and strong set piece, as we know. So, I think it'll be a great challenge for Scotland, but I think Canada will take the top of the pool in that game.
Interesting talking to Eddie Jones on Rugby Unity this week around the game in Canada, because his Japanese team played the Canadian men's side in Sendai in Japan last weekend, and we were talking about the Canadian women's team, and he said that the women's rugby does get a look at a lot of the best athletes. In Canada. A lot of the best female athletes do play rugby, unlike in the men's game. And there's been a lot of investment in Canada so far in that women's game, and it's clearly paying off. And you would expect that this weekend they will be too good for Scotland. But some of those Scottish players have, some of their running backs, they're pretty swift. So will be a good contest. So I'm looking forward to that. The next match, USA versus Samoa. Every Australian fan will be watching this to see what happens. You're the expert. Tell us what happens.
I think USA will win comfortably. I'm not sure by how much, but I think they'll win comfortably. I think maybe 60-0 or 60-5, which is still good for Australia. Yeah,
but do you think that you don't think that they'll beat them by more than Australia beat them?
I don't think so. I think Australia probably has better finishers than the US. Watch them score so many more tries now. But I just think watching both teams play, USA definitely have a strong forward pack and are really skillful in those areas. But I think we've got a lot of pace out wide, and I'm just not sure the US can kind of match it with that. But who's to say they won't put more than 60 on? But praying and hoping that Samoa put up a good fight. Good fight for the Aussies.
Yeah. Now, but you are Samoa. You're part-time. You've come together. You've probably not had the preparation that others have had. Are you tired? This is your last game. Does that get you up? Or does that get you down in that you can't get up because it's your third game and you're not quite able to? Or have you benefited from those first two games and you want to continue to improve?
Yeah, I'd say they've probably benefited. And obviously versus England, it's a hard task for anyone. So I'm sure they'll be up for this game and will be doing everything they can to help the Wallaroos get through to the quarters. But I think everyone's probably tired in the last round of the pool, but they've got so much to play for and they really want to do their country and their families proud.
You don't think that they wouldn't have it in their mind that if they perform well, that'd be of benefit to Australia, would they?
I think they probably would. I'm sure. We know a few of those girls. Yeah, a few of those girls play in the Super W comp, and I think speaking to some of them, they want Australia to go through. But
oh, there we go. Isn't that nice? Our Pacific friends. Yeah. Great to see. Well, good luck to Samoa in holding USA at bay. The next match, Wales-Fiji.
I think Fiji honestly could upset Wales with the way they've been playing, and we saw Fiji back to their running rugby best against Scotland, and they scored some great tries. So we know that they can attack when they hold onto the ball and play that unstructured style of footy, and it's kind of back to the drawing board for Wales, and they haven't really, after that win against Australia up at Ballymore, they haven't really performed to how they would have liked to. So, I'm sure it'll be a great game and both teams will be wanting to win that one.
Yeah, Wales clearly will be disappointed with their tournament. And what I liked about Fiji last week was the physicality against the Scottish. They were whacking into them. They were throwing their bodies. And again, to me, it looked like that they had a bit of confidence. And really, 29-15 loss to Scotland was a pretty fair effort. And I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think Fiji will have too much for Wales this week. All right, so we head to Brighton. England versus Australia. Australia needs to either manage a points differential that will be greater or less than, I should say, the USA to go through, or score 4 tries to secure a bonus point, or lose by less than 7. So, Bella McKenzie, take me through it. What's going to happen? Is it going to be too big an occasion for the English? Are they going to get overawed? Or are they going to go about their professional and clinical ways and continue to build into this tournament, wanting to see performance, wanting to see improvement, which is exactly how you want Rugby World Cup campaigns to go. You want to see 1 week improve to the next, They have a very experienced coach in John Mitchell. You have players who want to play in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals and the finals in their home World Cup. Yes, there's expectation, but all of those matters are in their favour. And we then have on the other side of the field an Australian team who are desperate. If they don't win through to the quarterfinals, it will be a serious disappointment for women's rugby in Australia. You tell me what's going to happen.
I think perhaps England could maybe get a bit complacent. They've already locked up quarterfinals. So this could be a perfect time for Australia to really, really put the foot down and show that they can play rugby and play for 80 minutes and be consistent. And I know they do have it in them. It's just all around that consistency and playing in the right areas of the field and sorting out the discipline. But I think England, they will be a hard task this weekend, but perhaps they could get a bit complacent knowing that they've already locked up quarterfinals. So it could be perfect time to strike for the Aussies. But yeah, I think once England get a roll on, they're really hard to stop. So we really need to find a way to make that breakdown really messy for Mo Hunt, that she can't get that ball out quickly and find those runners. So yeah, it'll be a big challenge for the Aussies, but I'm sure it's one they'll get up for.
Can they win?
I'm not too sure. Honestly, it's probably 50-50 at this point, and depends how the training week's been this week, what the game plan will be going into it, and that they will know the score between Samoa and USA before the game's even kicked off. So perhaps that could come into play of it, that mental side, and knowing the calculations, the maths and all that analytical stuff could come into it. But never say never. It's a World Cup. Anything can happen on any given day. So I'm backing them to hopefully get the win.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That they know what happens. I would have thought that creates expectation.
Yeah.
That you really don't, you don't want anything else in your head other than playing what's next. You don't want to be sort of doing the mathematics as you're running around thinking, oh, well, I don't have to chase that hard because, we've got this in the bag. So I would have thought that could be, that's a potential distraction.
It could be for some, could be distracting for some, but maybe positive for others, knowing that the goal is to make quarterfinals and however that be, once you're in the quarters, it's a World Cup, anything can kind of happen. And you're kind of looking at versing Canada in that quarterfinal, and on a good day, Australia can really match it with the Canadians. So I think maybe looking forward to that is making quarterfinals the goal, which it kind of has been this whole year, is to get to quarterfinals, and then anything can happen. So you can look at it of two ways, I guess.
You alluded to the game plan around, trying, to turn, the breakdown into a mess, climb all over Mo Hunt, pull her into the ruck, just make it generally a bit of a dockyard brawl there on the ground. But how else do you think that they'll play, given, the tactics that we've seen from Australia so far, which has been about field position, trying to play in the right part of the field, relying on their kicking game, looking at those chop tackles, trying to get those big ball runners from England on the ground, because from a collision point of view, they're pretty hard to handle if you try to take them if you try to take them any other way, aren't they?
Yeah, I think, chop tackles has been a massive focus for the Wallaroos this year. But in terms of attack, I think we haven't really seen the Australians attack the way that we know they can. They haven't really used the ball out the back. They haven't thrown much tip passes. They haven't really gotten down the edges in phase play, only really in the 22. So, I'm hoping that England have really great line speed. So those tip balls between the forwards will be on, and then hopefully getting the ball out the back more and finding some tied forwards in the middle to attack down those channels. I think I'd really like to see that from the Wallaroos this weekend.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really going to have to be the best performance ever from a Wallaroos side, and that's what you would be expecting, I think, with everything to play for, that this should be. Everything is set up for the Australians to produce the best ever performance by a Wallaroos team. I still don't think that'll be enough to win the game, but it will be enough to win conclusively through to a quarter-final. And as you say, to then take some confidence into a quarter-final against Canada, where you do think that you are a genuine chance to then move forward through to a semi-final. You'll be clearly the underdogs against Canada, but I think if Australia can produce an out-and-out performance, they can get the errors out of their game and play it at a level perhaps they've never played at before. Brighton will be packed. The weather will be beautiful. The atmosphere will be stunning. The city will be alive. It will just, God, it'll be.
Yeah, it'll be a great day to be a part of. Yeah, same. Wish I was there. Rather be here talking to you though. But no, honestly, like you said, they need to play out of their skin, and they have so much to play for. And everyone that I've been speaking to that's played for the Wallaroos, and yeah, we're all backing them to hopefully get the job done and do us all proud.
Yeah, it would be great to see, to see a really top-notch performance where you do see the Australians play at their best. You do see those errors come out of the game. You do see that attacking, back three brought into it more. Yep. Yeah, Desi Miller and Caitlin Hulse have got their hands on the ball, but haven't seen too much from Maya Stewart, for example. She's been. What do you think that is? It just ball hasn't moved in her direction.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and obviously I'm really good friends with Maya, and she's kind of getting a bit frustrated, but her confidence is never low, and I know that once she gets the ball, she's so damaging in space, and they just really need to go down that right side. I know G-Fred, the 13, she loves to attack down that channel. She really needs to get the ball out. I'm not sure why the ball's not coming out. It's kind of getting stuck in those middle forwards. But yeah, I told G-Fred, just stand behind the pod and get the ball out and get to your attacking rugby, because she is such a class attacker, and she's been world class for the Waratahs and Wallaroos for so many years. And yeah, I think those two can link up down that right edge and show England something that they haven't seen yet in this tournament. So yeah, just hopefully get G-Fred and Maya some early ball.
Well, it's interesting you mention her, because when she played, I think it might have been this year. I think it was this year for the Waratahs. She was outstanding.
Yeah, she was Waratahs Player of the Year. So
North Sydney Oval. Yeah. One particular match, she just she had spiders on it. No one could touch her. She was. Anyway, we'll wait and see. Yeah. That's something to really look forward to and get excited about. And it's great to see that everyone's getting so interested in the Women's Rugby World Cup. So that is fantastic. So that's in Brighton. And yes, wouldn't we all like to be there? But we're not, so there we go. So I'll be on my couch watching Japan and Spain. This is going to be a good contest, isn't it? Yeah. The Spanish, to me, have been impressive. And I just love the way the Japanese play. They've just been at it and at it and at it. And clearly, New Zealand were always going to beat them. They had too much for them, but that didn't stop them. They just kept at it, and they're a good side, Japan. So what's your assessment of that particular match?
Yeah, like you said, Japan, they scored the first try against New Zealand in the first 5 minutes. So they are a great rugby team. They seem to have really good coaches. They have probably one of the best skill sets in rugby at the moment. So, but yeah, Spain are improving every week, and I think it'll be a really close game. But I think Japan might win it in a close one. I think their fitness and their skill level. I think Spain will probably go try for try, and then Japan will kind of run away with it with their fitness and skill level in the back end of the game. But yeah, as you mentioned, Spain improving week to week, which is really positive for them. And they've got a great outside centre, Claudia Pena. She's only young, and she plays over in the Prem for Harlequins, and yeah, she's a real rising star of that Spanish team. Yeah,
so I'm with you. I think Japan will get the chocolates on this one. But look, I'm very excited by the development of rugby in Spain. And a couple of weeks ago, I was having a chat with the chairman of World Rugby, Brett Robinson, and he was telling me that the Spanish are really getting behind rugby, both the men's game and the women's game, not only at the Olympics but in the 15 side of things, and they're seriously talking to World Rugby about bidding for Rugby World Cup in the middle 2030s. So the Spanish, and the government's involved, the Spanish rugby's involved, a lot of the big commercial partners are involved, and they're looking to develop the game. And I did notice the other day that the Investec European Championship for the men next year, the final will be played in Spain, in Bilbao. So great to see the Spanish getting in behind rugby, because when you look at the quality of their athletes, whether it's in football or various Olympic sports, they're an absolute handful. And so I do think, rugby supports that Latin type of body shape and size and skill and flair. And so I think with continued investment, and clearly World Rugby will be wanting to see that out of the Spanish if they do want to compete. But indeed, look what happened with Japan when they competed and won. World Rugby did take a bit of a risk to take the Men's World Cup to Japan, and look what it's done for the game in Japan. Yep. It's now the third largest rugby market in the world, continuing to grow. And indeed, in the strategic plan of the Japanese rugby, they are looking to bid once again for Rugby World Cup. So good to see both Japan and Spain, two of the rising stars of world rugby, going at it at the Women's Rugby World Cup. So the next match, Italy versus Brazil. Great to see the Brazilians there and the crowds getting behind the Brazilians and supporting them. Clearly, last weekend against the French, a little tough, 84 points to 5. But again, they've had people there supporting them. And I think the way that they've played, the spirit that they've played with, but again, a nation of enormous potential to grow the game of rugby. The Italians clearly would be disappointed in their tournament so far, but you would expect that they will have way too much for the Brazilians this weekend. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Italy will win that game comfortably, but as you mentioned, Brazil, they scored their first try of the World Cup last weekend, Bianca Silva, who's a really classy sevens player. So yeah, really cool to see them get a try, and the crowd kind of went crazy. It was nuts to hear. Couldn't really hear anything except the crowd cheering, which was really cool to see and really pleasing for Brazil. But yeah, I think Italy will win that game quite comfortably.
Yeah. I think that given the scale and the size of Brazil as a country, and I know that in that South American rugby, the Argentinians are clearly leading the development of the game over there. Everyone wants to see Brazil grow. Everyone wants to see them prosper and to become a force in world rugby. And again, when you think of the quality of the athletes that have come out of Brazil in so many different sports over the years, I'm sure that there are a number of athletes who would love to play rugby and compete in rugby. And so, again, this opportunity for them to compete at this Women's Rugby World Cup is only a forerunner to continue to development in such an important country for rugby around the world. The next match, New Zealand versus Ireland. Your thoughts? I
think this is going to be the game of the round. They've only played 3 games in history, and Ireland have won 2 of them. The most recent one being World XV 2024. So, yeah, I think this is the game of the round. The winner will top Pool C and have not an easier quarterfinal, but they'll verse the second team of whatever pool they're versing. But yeah, I think this will definitely be the game of the round, and we know the Irish can upset New Zealand. They've done it before and most recently, but I think the Black Ferns they always perform at a World Cup. I think they have too much class in every position. They have amazing depth, but I think I'm not sure if it'll be close. I think perhaps the first half could be close, but then I think the Black Ferns will run away with it in the end. What do you think?
I'm with you. I think the Black Ferns will just have too much class for them. I think the Irish will go at them. And yes, clearly they take some confidence, because there's nothing like beating someone to then go and play them again and look at them and think, well, I've done it once, I can do it again. But I do, I don't know. For me, New Zealand teams do, as you say, they build into these tournaments. I talk about her every week, Georgia Miller. She's my favourite player. I just can't, I just watch it. Can't take my eyes off her. I just think she is an absolute superstar of the game. They moved her from 7 to 6 last weekend, and she still cut the place up every time that she got the ball. She is just such a handful, and I think as this tournament goes on, she is going to become a real weapon for the Kiwis, and as they build into their work, as they like to do, she will become even bigger threat. And I did notice in the fantasy football, she made the team of the round, Georgia Miller, and she almost had the most number of points in her position to win that. And also, again, one of my other favourites is that Braxton Sorensen McGee. She's just a class player. And she just, every opportunity she gets, she just looks better and better. So, yeah, I just think they'll have too much for the Irish in the end, and it will be a great game to watch. But for me, I think the game of the round could be France-South Africa. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really good challenge for South Africa to see where they're truly at against a top four side. And we know the French are building into it. They kind of showed their class last week, and having their 9 back, Pauline Bodun-Sansus, is so beneficial for that team. So I think if they can match it with France physically, I think, who knows what can happen. But I think France will win in the end, just due to fitness and conditioning and that sort of thing. But I think it'll be a great game.
Yeah, I think, regular listeners will know that I was super impressed with the French in the first round. You could just see, to me, that there were, quality players there who were going to emerge, and with that experienced half returning to the team, I think that could be the difference. Although, as I said at the beginning, the South African team, they have been impressive. They will take momentum. They will take confidence. They will have everybody in South Africa behind them. But it could be that conditioning. It could get down to about that last 10, 15 minutes where the difference takes. But I do think it will be close. I think there are plenty of points in the South African team.
Yeah.
If they can create some space for Malinga, the winger, she is lightning. And as you say, the half that went back to 15, Roos, very clever player. If they can create some opportunity for their outside backs, if they can get parity in the forwards. But, I think that the French, driven around the field, ordered around the field by an experienced halfback, I think it makes a huge difference in the women's game at this stage. So, wow, what a weekend. what plenty of rugby to enjoy this weekend. And clearly we have the Rugby Championship resuming. So I hope people don't have anything else to do this weekend other than watch rugby, because there will be plenty to look forward to. We'll talk about the quarterfinals next weekend, Bella. But you did yesterday have the opportunity to speak to the Australian co-captain Emily Chancellor on your Rugby Unity podcast. What message did you take away from your discussion with Chancellor?
Yeah, similar to what we discussed about them being flat post-game, but they've really bounced back and seem to have had a positive training week. And they know it's a tough challenge this weekend against England. But I think, Chance has mentioned before, they are those underdogs, and they'll really be looking to go all out against England this weekend. But from all reports, everything seems well and happy in Camp Australia over in Brighton. Now they had a big travel day on the Monday and got in there late Monday night, I think. So would have had a big test match Tuesday today, and I'm sure they'll be ready and roaring to go come Saturday against England.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And before we go, just a reminder to the audience, keep an eye out for the social media activity that you're seeing. We are here at Rugby Unity going to be awarding the Content Creators Cup to the person or the team that we judge to be the most engaging on social media. You look at those social media view numbers, 205 million social media views so far. So we really want to encourage the players and the teams and everybody else to get out there and create as much possible content as you possibly can. And if you do see it coming across your feeds, share, just get it moving, get it out there, because we want to continue to support this wonderful tournament, which is really showing how just great the game of rugby is, and just how important women's rugby is to the future prosperity of rugby union around the world. Well, Bella McKenzie, I will leave you to get back to your busy day. I will push on with other things, but certainly another great conversation with you today. And to you, the audience, thank you for coming back once again. Please keep the comments and the questions coming. You can jump across to our Substack and give us your email address, and that will keep you more informed about other content that we have on Rugby Unity. Later in the week, Eddie Jones and Ewan McKenzie return with the preview of the Rugby Championship, the third round of the Rugby Championship, perhaps the most anticipated test match of 2025, the Springboks and the All Blacks at Eden Park. And those two experts will be going through in great detail how they expect that game will be played as the attention of the rugby world turns to New Zealand just for a brief moment before it returns back to England and the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup. So a big thanks to Bella McKenzie, a big thanks to you, and please be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke, and it's bye for now.